a premises-free clothing store for the homeless is coming to Cape Town. It will be hosted by the eNCA Saatchi Group SA and will be in its milestone 1000th shop. The group launched an open-source platform called the Street Store in 2014 and has since helped millions of people in need globally. It's aimed at helping displaced people living in poverty improve their quality of life. Let's find out more now about this ongoing project from the group's executive chairman, Mike Abel, who joins us virtually from Cape Town. Mike, thank you so much for your time. This is not the first time we've heard about the Street Store, but at the time I remember reading about it and I thought, oh, that's cute. It's probably just a once-off project for this advertising industry, and it looked cool on social media. But you guys have really gotten stuck in. Talk to us about the genesis of this project.
So many years ago, in 2014, actually, we were very concerned about the plight of the homeless and the poor, particularly in the area of our Cape Town agency in Greenpoint. And we had a client, the Haven Night Shelter, and we came up with this idea of having a pop-up clothing store for the homeless that would bring both dignity to the giver and particularly to the receiver, where they didn't rummage through black bags to try and find something that didn't fit them and that they didn't want, but they could genuinely shop. And we took a decision at that time to go open source to make it available to whoever wanted to host one around the world. And we've just been blown away by the fact that it's become this incredible, vibrant global movement for clothing the homeless.
How has it been received overseas? Can you give us some examples of where it's really taken off?
All over America, we have been in South America, Asia. It's just incredible. And to see how different communities bring it to life. They all put their own fresh spin on it that is available. All they need to do is to download the material and to sign the pledge that the Street Store is 100% in terms of giving and that there will be no taking through it. We have come across a few chances along the way who have tried to commercialize it. And unfortunately, different communities have alerted it to us. But by and large, it's been unbelievably rewarding to see how good people are in the world and how people grasp an idea like this and apply it locally.
I wonder if you could talk to us just about some of the criticism perhaps that has come your way, because I always find when projects like this are launched in the corporate space or by big flashy advertising agencies such as yourself, people, especially in the time of social media that we live in, will be very quick to say, "Oh, look at you buying your way out of privilege and trying to put a glossy look on the poverty that people experience on a day-to-day life." But I'm sure the feeling would be you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. How did you guys overcome that kind of criticism that perhaps did come your way right at the start?
Well, we live in a time today, as we know, where there's a lot of clickbait that comes through manufactured outrage. Inventions such as poverty porn, where people think that you're doing something for ulterior motives, or you are, extolling virtue in order to make a difference, or rather to get attention. That kind of stuff we ignore. I mean, if it's factually incorrect and if there isn't a moment of reflection or learning, then you need to discount that as nonsense, because it's very easy, I think, to throw stones. The fact is that we are making a meaningful difference. Every single person who donates to the Street Store, every single person who works at the Street Store, and the people that receive. The people that receive at the Street Store are also giving a huge honor to the people that are working there, because it's a reciprocal arrangement. And I think that something that people haven't actually applied their minds to is when you recycle clothing and when you give clothing to people in need, as opposed to the surplus that lives in so many people's cupboards, it's quite incredible that the clothing manufacturing industry contributes about 10% of emissions and greenhouse gases to the world. So if people recycled their clothing and gave it to other people, you could actually drive down demand for manufacture. And there are many different ways of looking at this, none of which are negative.
For me, the most important part of this project is the fact that it does give some kind of dignity back to those who perhaps is one of the first things that they lose when they have to sleep rough, or when they lose all of their possessions, or whatever the backstory is of those who are living of the streets of the cities of our country and indeed the world. Do you think enough thought is given to that when we are looking at projects, or even the work that government does to try and help those in need? I think especially of the millions who depend on those grants that are delivered every month by government. Do you think there's enough thought given to the dignity and the humanity that is needed to help these people out of the current situation they find themselves in?
No, I think that the short answer is, I always say it's far more important to identify the right problem than to jump to the solution. And I think too many people in countries and municipalities are too quick to jump to solutions where they don't make meaningful changes to people's lives through the things that they put in place. So the street store is a wonderful example of how you can harness, I guess, the collective goodwill. If you look at probably one of the most powerful movements in our country today, the gift of the givers, I think that what Imtiaz Suleiman and his people are doing there is an amazing example of what can be done outside of formal structures to change the situation for many people, whether it was the outbreak of violence in KZN, whether it is flood relief. There are many examples, I think, that we've seen active citizenry be the solution more than official structures.
Do you think it also allows a space for the acknowledgement of privilege? I mean, I often see the argument saying, yeah, OK, so I've said I'm privileged, now what? Now what must I do? Do you feel that there's enough of an outlet for people who feel that perhaps they're stuck in these positions of privilege and they have no outlet to try and make a difference in some way, shape or form?
Yes, I think privilege is a very real thing. I think it's a very real thing given our history, and I think it's a very real thing given the construct of many things that have happened since our free democracy. So we need to all understand that there are some people that have a whole lot more than most of the country. And if you look at our unemployment rate, if you have a look at the challenges that people experience as a result of food prices going up significantly, as a result of the power cuts that we are experiencing as a country, the pressure is immense, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots has only grown greater over the last few years, the impact of COVID. So when you look at privilege, absolutely, I think that we are in a position to give those that have more, and we should actively give. And I think that we shouldn't be hindered or harnessed by guilt. I think we need to be liberated by guilt. And I think we need to say, how can we make a difference? Where can we make a difference? And to lean into it, rather than to say, actually, I'm going to get criticized from whatever I do. Because if you do something with pure motives, if you are criticized, so what? If you know you're making a meaningful difference because it comes from the right place, make that difference. And there's a massive difference we can all make. And I think it's foolish for people to say, privilege is a thing of the past. Privilege is a very real and live thing. And if you understand it and if you embrace it, you can change it and make a difference.
Mike, you penned an open letter last year, and it came to mind when I realized I'm chatting to you, and I was able to find it online. It was published in various places, including the Daily Maverick, and it was entitled, This is my South Africa, this is my home, and this is a place worth fighting for. And of course, you list all the things that we love about our country. It's also all the things that we see in all the SA tourism adverts, and the list goes on. But there's a paragraph here where you say, my South Africa is one of struggle heroes, a people who said no to tyranny, a people who want a better life, a people who want jobs, a people who want a government that cares, who truly cares, and one that solves unemployment through job creation and restores and returns hope to our wonderful country, ever patient, resilient and creative, restless. It's the hope, however, Mike, people will say, it's the hope that kills you. But that letter in itself told me that this is something that drives everything that you do, both in business and indeed then in projects such as the street store.
Yes, I've always been driven since a very young age. I mean, I started my first advertising agency during the 80s, during apartheid, with eNCA, Black Taxi Association in the Eastern Cape, operating out of Zwide, KwaZulu, New Brighton, and Motherwell. And the purpose there was to create a company, build a company, but in partnership with disenfranchised Black South Africans, because I've always, or my parents inculcated a hatred for apartheid and understanding exactly what it is from a very young age.
Because they were immigrants, weren't they?
My grandparents were immigrants, and my one grandmother came here from Poland, and her entire family that stayed behind were murdered by the Nazis. So we well understand intolerance and the perils of intolerance and what happens when you don't make something your problem and you think it's somebody else's problem. And when we started eNCA Saatchi Abel in 2010, myself and my partners wanted it first and foremost to be a force for good in South Africa, to use creativity, to use problem solving, to make a major difference in society and in communities and to help where we can. So I think that South Africa is a magnificent country. The tragedy of South Africa is everything is here to solve employment. Everything is here to solve our power crisis, our infrastructure crisis. We have amazing talent still in this country. We are blessed with incredible resources here. It's really about effectively harnessing them and ensuring that they are deployed in the areas where they can make a tangible difference to people's lives. And that cuts to intent. We have to understand what is the intent to change people's lives and to put the right people in the right places to do that. Because the reality is, you know, if you've got a multi-billion-dollar portfolio, political portfolio, if you don't have experience in that particular sector and you're not driven by changing people's lives as a result of your particular group area of responsibility, where will success come from? And so I think that as South Africans, we all need to put major pressure, not just on government, but on ourselves to make a difference wherever we can and to make decisions that will drive the country forward positively.
Mike, where can people find out more about this street store and indeed the milestone 1,000th street store that's coming up?
Yes, so this street store is called the 1,000 Plus because although we've reached 1,000, that's not the target, it's the beginning. We want to keep on rolling this out for decades to come. It's going to be on Human Rights Day, the 21st of March. In Cape Town, it'll be at the Haven Night Shelter in Greenpoint. In Johannesburg, at the Salvation Army. If other people watch this and are inspired and want to run their own street store in South Africa, in Kwabega, in Durban, around the country, please do. You go to www.streetstore.org. You can download the pledge there and you can participate. And it's an unbelievably rewarding thing. And so this year, not just people being invited, but we're inviting your tackies, we're inviting your tracksuits, we're inviting your hoodies and all your clothing to come and join you and to make a difference. And it's an amazing thing to be a part of.
And even the designer stuff that you're not wearing anymore, I'm sure will find a home. Thank you so much, eNCA Saatchi Group South Africa Executive Chairman Mike Abel, joining us virtually there from Cape Town. Great conversation there. Like he said, www.streetstore.org if you want to start your own street store or join them on the 21st of March, either in Cape Town at the Night Haven. You can Google for details there, as well as here in Johannesburg at Salvation Army, I believe, is where he said. Otherwise, just go on to streetstore.org. I'm sure all the information will be there on all of their social media platforms. We thank them